Welcome to Common Ground, an inside look at Suffolk County. I'm your host, Steve Tompkins, Chief of External Affairs for the Suffolk County Sheriff's Department. Now, today is just off the chart. One of my all-time favorite people is in the house, and that would be Michelle Wu. And I know that a lot of you have heard her name. She's running for the City Council, running for a citywide seat. It's going to be a heck of a race, clearly because there are 4 incumbents, so there's not an open seat. And so that means not as if she weren't going to try real hard to win a seat. That brings an extra element of just excitement to the whole process. And so we're going to talk to Michelle about her candidacy, her run, why she's doing it, and then we'll talk to her about the bigger political picture out there. She also worked on Senator Warren's campaign this past year, and so we'll get some insights into some of the good things that happened there. So without any further ado, Michelle, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
So, who are you? Who is Michelle Wu? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am the oldest child of immigrant parents from Taiwan. My parents came to the United States just before I was born for education, for opportunity, for their future children. I came out to the Boston area for college and fell in love with the city. Knew I was going to stay here forever and ever. I spent every single weekend of college in Chinatown teaching citizenship classes to Chinese immigrants, people who had been doctors and nurses and engineers back in China, who had come to the United States because of language barriers and other issues, were now working as janitors, cooks, dishwashers, so that they could ensure a better life for their children and grandchildren. Okay. That was a very moving and personal experience for me, and I've seen that commitment to democracy and commitment to community now in every single neighborhood in Boston. So I, after college, went to law school, ran a small business, worked on the Elizabeth Warren campaign, and launched my own campaign for Boston City Council at large. So
tell us about Boston and particularly why, because I believe you arrived here in 2003. Why is it that you really, what is it about the city that really gets you going? What do you love about it?
For me, it's all about family. I live in the South End with my husband and 2 younger sisters who I've been taking care of for the last 6 or so years. And the sense of family that we feel in the South End, babysitting for, my sisters babysit for our neighbors. We get to walk to use a public library down the street, and there's a strong group there that protects the library. You can bike to downtown. There are community groups that cover every single block of the South End, and that's not just in this one neighborhood. It's happening all across the city. So as a candidate now, I've been able to sit at multiple neighborhood associations a night and know that similar meetings are happening everywhere in Boston. I love it.
So part of your job I'll tell you what, why don't you tell the audience what your job was for the Elizabeth Warren campaign? What did you do?
I started out organizing in Boston, working in almost every neighborhood of the city, and I just got to see really the energy and excitement that each neighborhood brings to politics and to a cause that they believe in. Later on, I stepped into a role of coordinating statewide outreach to communities of color. So a lot of that being focused in Boston because we have so much diversity here, but got to lead a community outreach team to really enhance and supplement our field efforts statewide.
So when you go through the communities and you talk to folks, you don't feel a certain political apathy where folks do not want to be engaged, or do you feel that there's interest, but it has to be stoked, that you really have to sit with folks and talk to them, not necessarily just about your campaign, but the bigger platform, the bigger picture in political life? Do you feel that that needs to be pulled out of them, or are folks just really engaged?
I think it depends on where you are and how you start the conversation. People want to participate. They want to have a reason to participate and jump in, but oftentimes campaigns, politicians don't necessarily take that first step of saying, I'm going to be in the community, I'm going to ask what you care about, and I'm going to respond to that and make that part of why I'm running. But I find that I've been all throughout the city now, and when you stop to have that conversation with people face to face, community to community, people are excited. They want to jump in, and the spirit of organizing in Boston at the very grassroots level, I think has gone back to colonial times here. You feel it every day. We're connected to that history.
Why the city council versus state rep or state senate or something on the federal level?
I've always loved cities. I always loved the sense of energy and excitement of living around other people and having cultural institutions here, businesses right around the block. And I think city government is a level of government where you can really make a difference. It's the one that's closest to the people, the one where you can be out and about in the city, see your constituents every single day, respond to their problems in real time, and really think about what solutions the community would want to put forward that could take effect immediately.
So then what would you say to the folks say, okay, well, the city council, the Boston City Council really doesn't have that much power to it, that the mayor's organization really runs everything and the city councilors are just kind of there. I don't agree with that, but I'm curious as to what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I think the city council is a position where you can make a lot of change and you can do a lot of good for the community. Part of the job is just being a voice for communities around the city in the case of the at-large candidates. And I'm looking forward to continuing my conversations that I've had, starting with the Warren campaign, starting with my community work, now through the campaign and afterwards, of really taking that micro-level approach, the grassroots approach, to bringing communities into the process of government.
What are your 2 or 3 issues that you're really going to champion on the trail?
For me, it's about families, and that means how do we strengthen Boston, what's best about Boston while including every family. So I want to talk about innovation, I want to talk about education, it's schools, and how do we make sure that our students have pathways to some of these jobs that Boston is attracting from around the world.
I'm very curious when you talk about innovation. Flesh that out a little bit more for us. When you want to talk about innovation, from what standpoint?
It's really, I want to make sure that Boston is defined by the word innovation in all of our neighborhoods. So right now we are already the national, global leader really in innovation in terms of being a hub for biotechnology, universities, research and teaching hospitals. Some of the most cutting edge inventions and ideas are being brought to reality right here in Boston between the Longwood Medical Center, the Innovation District, Kendall Square region in Cambridge. But the question is, how do we make sure that this idea, this energy, and this set of bringing ideas to life is really seen in all of our neighborhoods too? Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was going to ask you, because in some of these neighborhoods, that is not, when you talk to people about what is it they want to hear from politicians. They're going to talk about employment, healthcare, those sort of things, crime and justice, but not necessarily innovation. So do you think this is going to be a tough message for you to get across, or have you tailored it in a way where people will understand it and receive it, and equally as important, want to back you and work with you in that whole sort of let's bring innovation to the forefront?
Yeah, I think we heard in the governor's State of the State address yesterday that innovation really underlies so many issues. Every other issue should be defined by this type of new thinking, fresh ideas. Innovation is basically bringing ideas to reality that fill some need. So it's not just, designing the next biomedical device, but it's also how do we make sure that an entrepreneur who has an idea for a new business in the neighborhood is able to bring that to life.
He also talked about the need to put money into education and into transportation. Yeah. Let's start with education. What's your thoughts on how we make a more vibrant educational atmosphere come about for our kids?
Yeah, education is absolutely the foundation that we need to start from. And for me, it's very personal. Like I said, my parents came to the United States so that we could study in the United States and participate in this idea of public education, funded for the public good. My sister, who is now in 10th grade, has been in the Boston public school system for the last couple of years now, and we've seen that there are some wonderful parts of the Boston public schools, and there are some complications. There are places where it's very confusing for parents. And I've met with many families, a lot of my friends who are my age, who are caught in a dilemma because they love Boston, they want to stay here, they want to participate, but they're not sure if they want to take a risk in investing their down payment in a house if they're not sure if the school system is going to work out for their child. And I think we see when families are choosing outside of the Boston public schools, choosing to move away, choosing private school, we need to do something to make sure that it works for every child.
So when you talk about the school system working for them, do you have do you have a view on school assignment?
It's a complicated conversation, and there are a lot of moving parts to it. But I think what we need to keep in mind is that it's about community and family, and how do we make it possible for families to invest in their communities, invest in their schools? Because when you think about the school environment and what makes a successful education environment, it's not just teachers, and it's not just students being at the right schools with good teachers. It's parents, it's community, it's extracurricular activities, it's nonprofit organizations that support that dynamic. And so when we make it predictable for parents, when we give them the information, when we let them see how they can participate. Again, this idea of giving people an avenue, an inclusive avenue to participate, then I think we'll be able to really strengthen the support underneath our school system.
And the second point that the governor drove home in his State of the State address was transportation. Talk to me about the importance of, buses and cars and trains moving about, roadways and bridges, really functioning at their maximum capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really crucial to be able to get people to where they need to go. And that's how, if you live somewhere that's too far from where you work and you don't have an affordable, reliable means of getting there, you need to find another job or you need to move somewhere else. And so the more opportunities we create to link people from across the state, from across different neighborhoods in Boston to neighborhoods where there are jobs, to where they need to get to go, whether it's participating in cultural institutions, going to see museums or catch a movie somewhere, the more we create opportunities for people to get places and participate in the city, I think the more vibrancy we'll see all over.
All right, so let me shift a little bit now and talk about your campaign. So you worked for Elizabeth's campaign, and that sounded like it was one heck of an experience.
Absolutely.
Tell me about the juxtaposition from working for a campaign to being the candidate. Tell me, and I know there's a big difference, so I won't ask is there a big difference, but tell me about the difference.
It's certainly been an interesting shift. There are so many things from Elizabeth's campaign, from Senator Warren's campaign, that I fully intend to carry forward in my own. The commitment to grassroots organizing, doing the face-to-face outreach, being in the community. But when you shift from staffer to candidate, it feels like a lot more demands on your time, and I have to start to let go of some of the things that I love so much, really getting down into the nitty-gritty of scheduling and being able to spend time poring over my OCPF reports and doing every single little thing myself. That's not sustainable, and I'm very lucky to have a great team around me who are experienced, they are caring, they are passionate about the city, and so I feel good about making that shift from being the face behind the scenes to the person out and about in the neighborhood.
So now, the primaries in September of 2013.
Yep.
The generals in November of 2013. You began your campaign last December.
Yep, about the second week of December.
2012. Why'd you start so early?
It's a big city, and I wanted to give myself as much time as possible to talk to as many people as possible in Boston. I wanted to make sure that this was a campaign that engaged people face to face, and I think there's no other way to be able to do that unless you give yourself the time.
Why citywide versus your district where you live?